Every year, tech companies convince us that our current products aren't good enough anymore, and that we need the next big upgrade. And look, sometimes there is a generational leap that makes a huge difference. But how do we differentiate between a product that really will change the user experience and fancy marketing that's just designed to sell us the same thing? Let's talk about the most overhyped tech of this year and why we keep falling for it. The tech industry loves to sell more as better, more hertz or more DPI, but for many of these products, these innovations just won't make that much of a difference anymore. And look, it's not that I hate having the latest tech. I'm probably more guilty of that than you are. But I really do think we've hit the point where most tech just is good enough. Companies are now reaching a point where they're competing more over numbers than they are the actual user experience. And let me tell you, it's to their benefit, not ours. Look, I remember the feeling of getting my first 144 hertz monitor. It was seriously just night and day compared to my old 60 hertz panel. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then the higher the hertz on a monitor, then the higher the frames per second that monitor can display. So a 60 hertz monitor displays 60 frames per second, 144 hertz monitor displays 144 frames per second, and so on. The main difference you're going to notice is motion clarity. Everything is just going to look smoother and more responsive on a higher refresh rate monitor. So when I got that 144 hertz monitor and saw it for the first time, everything from playing games to just scrolling on Amazon or something just felt like an actually new experience. And then when I tried to go back to my old 60 hertz panel, it just felt choppy and disappointing. So naturally I thought, well, more hertz is better. So I ended up buying a 240 hertz monitor, and I've tried everything from OLED panels to 360 hertz and the whole 9 yards. And honestly, there really wasn't that much of a difference. And look, I'm not gonna say that you can't tell any difference between like a 500 hertz monitor and a 144 hertz monitor. It's just not gonna be nearly as much of a difference as that initial jump from 60 hertz. It will change your experience, just not as much as these companies who are selling the product wants to make you think it will. Like, it definitely didn't make me any more productive, and it didn't really make me a better gamer. I mean, to be honest, every tier of high refresh rate monitor past 144 has just felt like 95% the same as having 120 or 144 hertz panel. Like, it kind of feels like buying a Ferrari just to drive in traffic. Like, yeah, it's technically faster, but it's practically pretty pointless. Right now, pretty much all of my screens are 120 hertz, and I found that's a great balance for gaming and for productivity. Everything feels really smooth and responsive. Like, honestly, I'm telling you, there's no need to go out of your way to spend money for anything that's like a super, super high refresh rate. So just take it from me, I've seen it all. Just buy your 120 or 144 hertz monitor and call it a day. Okay, so if you're not up to date on the whole like mechanical keyboard world, then allow me to fill you in. A typical switch has something called an actuation point, and that's when your key press is actually registered by your computer. Once you pass that actuation point, then you have to come back up and pass it again before you can register another key press. Hall effect keyboards get around this by allowing you to register another key press immediately after you finish pressing a key, even if you've only come back up like 1/10 of a millimeter. So in theory, for gaming, this is supposed to feel night and day compared to a normal keyboard. Like, if you're strafing around in a competitive FPS game, it's gonna feel way snappier and more responsive. So I got one. And to be honest, this keyboard is actually really nice. But look, I have a lot of really nice keyboards already, so that wasn't the point of buying this thing for me. The point was this Hall effect technology and whether or not it's actually going to change the way that I game. The short answer, no. And look, some people are probably going to complain and say, well, Reed, you don't play like CSGO or Valorant or the highly competitive esports titles that are going to benefit from this technology. And yeah, I get that. That's valid, but I just want to be honest with you for a second. This keyboard is not the thing that's standing between you and your next rank. Like, saving a few milliseconds here and there on strafing is not going to make nearly as much of a difference as your game sense or your aim or your reaction time. So if you are a competitive esports player and you legitimately are going to lose thousands of dollars in a tournament or something, then I can totally see you buying something like this, but pretty much for everybody else, like this is not going to make nearly as much of a difference as you think. Okay, so if you're at all familiar with like the productivity tech space, then you have seen this mouse at some point. It's the Logitech MX Master. And I have the MX Master 3, and I've used this pretty much daily for like years at this point. And look, it's a nice mouse. It's got a nice scroll wheel here, a side scroll wheel, side buttons, and then something for gestures that I never actually end up using. But look, I have two main complaints with this mouse. The first is the weight. It's 141 grams, which doesn't sound like a lot on paper, but if you actually use it, it just feels really heavy. Like my gaming mouse is like a third of that weight, so when I'm using this thing, then I can definitely tell a noticeable difference. And the second complaint that I have is the polling rate. And look, I know I sound like a hypocrite, like, oh, don't buy high refresh rate monitors, and then I'm complaining about the polling rate on the mouse. Oh wait, dude, this thing has a 125 hertz polling rate. I'm just gonna tell you right now, a 125 hertz polling rate mouse is not the same thing as a 125 hertz monitor. This thing just feels pretty choppy and laggy to use compared to any other mouse that I've tried, and I don't see like any YouTubers talking about this at all. There are literally mice with 8,000 hertz polling rates, and granted, that is overhyped, but any modern mouse that you buy is going to have at least 1,000 hertz polling, and that's going to feel way smoother than this thing. And I guess if you kind of want a non-technical analogy, then this thing just feels like a 60 hertz monitor compared to every other mouse, which feels like that 144 hertz monitor. So naturally, I was actually really excited when Logitech announced the MX Master 4 this year, and every tech reviewer is just eating this thing up. They love it. And I just don't get it. They literally made it heavier than the 3, and they kept the 125 hertz polling rate. I understand there's an argument where people who don't game at all and only do productivity, like they don't care as much about like a high polling rate mouse or whatever. And yeah, I understand that, but it is like a legitimately noticeable difference. And it would literally cost them like, I don't know, 2 cents to put in a better sensor. There's just no reason why Logitech can't give us a better technology in 2025 for a mouse that's over $100. So yeah, this literally has all of the same issues that I had with the previous generation, so that's a hard pass for me. So yeah, sometimes spec sheets just don't tell the whole story. And in a few days, I'm going to be testing some of the cheapest tech on Amazon to see if some of those budget options can compete with something high-end, so subscribe if you want to see that.